Yeah, so, but kind of took me a while to sort of realise, like, what I was addicted to, like, me personally in my life and stuff, because I sort of always judge myself based on other people's addictions. Like, so I'm sort of like, I smoke occasionally cigarettes and stuff.
Yeah.
That's like probably one of the sort of guiltiest things on my brain. It's like I occasionally smoke cigarettes, and like it took me a while to sort of realise I am actually kind of addicted to them in some ways. Like, I don't smoke like 40 a day like other people. Like, I judge other people for being like, oh, that guy smokes 20 a day, and I only smoke like one every other day or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's that every other day that is actually still an addiction.
I think it's the pull. It's like the tug that you feel from the substance or whatever you're addicted to. It's the inability to get out of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a hard one. But yeah, no, nicotine is actually chemically addictive. So
yeah, it's a weird one because like I can stop myself from doing it. Like I don't smoke barely ever during the day or something. But like when I get high, sort of just like, you know what, I'll have a cigarette or whatever, and that's kind of when I sort of have it, and that's when I've associated it with. And so I'll get high, and then I'm like, you know what, I'll have one cigarette and that's it. But then I'll sort of think, oh, how many cigarettes have I had during one day? And I'll be like, oh, I've only had one. So I try and rationalise it and stuff, and I'm sort of like, those people out there who have like 20 cigarettes, so I can't be addicted, you know. But that is actually an addiction, like. And like the thing with weed as well, like I was kind of noticing that I was only looking forward to during the day, like the end of the day, where I get to smoke and sort of just being like, and that's a shit way of living life. It's just being like looking forward to something that gets you a little bit high and not actually enjoying the main bit of your life. Yeah.
So do you think your mind tricked you into making into like an addiction, the cigarettes?
Kind of. I mean, it started off just like the first time I sort of like smoked. I smoked weed before I smoked cigarettes.
No one plans to get addicted.
Yeah, no one does. Like, but it started off just like, I remember the first experience with it was like at this party that I went to, and this girl was just like, oh, do you want a cig? And I was just like, I had a few drinks and whatever, and I was kind of just a bit careless, and I was like, yeah, sure, go on then. And then I had one, and straight away I was like, you know, I'll have another one. Yeah, can I pitch another one? You know, can I have this? Can I have that? And so I smoked probably like, first time I smoked, probably chain smoke, like probably like almost 5 or something, you know. And then I was like, fuck, that's bad, because I realised when I was sober, I was like, shit, that's not good. That's like, for someone who never smoked cigarettes, like I just straight up chain smoked cigarettes. But then after that, like I wasn't addicted, I wasn't buying them or anything, but I started like finding out like to get cheap cigarettes or whatever. Got some cheap cigarettes.
I remember what you were selling them in school.
Yeah, that's how I started selling them in school. And I used to always sort of, what I'd always do is I'd always, from one of the packs, me and Sunny, right, secretly would always be like, we've got to test the product, you know, we've got to test it, you know. We've got to at least like sort of see if these are like good or whatever. And we'd be like, oh, this is horrible, you know, like sort of like, it's like, oh, they sell good though, like. Anyway, but it got to sort of like that, to sort of like buy and sort of like roll in tobacco or whatever, to sort of have the occasional spliff or whatever. And then I sort of decided like, you know what, I'll have a few like rolled up cigarettes or whatever, because that's the only ones I smoke. I don't smoke actual cigarettes, I smoke like skinny little roll up ones. But like it's still sort of like last night I was just like, I smoked some weed, and then it's always in the night that I've sort of smoked some weed, and then I'm like, you know, I'll have one cigarette or whatever, you know, and I'm sort of just like, I'll have that one cigarette, and then I'll just be like, that's okay, that's fine. But without that one cigarette, I'm sort of just thinking about it. I'm like, kind of like, if I don't have it, I'm sort of just like, oh, you know what, I'll go and have to, you know, yeah. So, but during the day, I'm fine. It's just that little bit, it's that one cigarette a day, and that bugs me, you know, because it's like, that isn't technically an addiction. It's very mild, but like it is an addiction.
Yeah, just any sort of attachment that you kind of, it's difficult for you to pull yourself away from. Yeah. And that's what addiction is, basically. Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of also started noticing with weed, like I'm always sort of going like, oh, you know, I smoke weed all the time. I smoke it like every day, and only thing that sort of annoys me about it is there's the effects of the actual high are fine. Like, I smoke weed, that's great. Like, when I'm high, I'm fine. I'm the best person I can be or whatever. But then when I'm not smoking weed, I'm thinking about weed, and I'm sort of thinking like, oh, you know, when am I next going to pick up? When am I next going to smoke?
Yeah, it consumes like
and I'm sort of like, oh, it'd be better now if I was high, you know. I'm not actually sort of enjoying it as much as before, you know. So like when I didn't smoke weed at all, I'd probably be having a better time. I'd probably be like enjoying myself a little bit more because I hadn't touched weed or anything.
Maybe it's like the potentiality to be in a more elevated state than you are that makes the current experience like dull in comparison.
Yeah. It's a hard one though, because it's like smoking weed and stuff isn't like, you sort of rationalize it and sort of go like,
it's not one of the worst addictions.
Yeah, it's not one of the worst addictions, and it's not really awful for you. You know, you're not going to really wake up tomorrow and be like, I've got lung cancer from weed, you know, like. So, but it does kind of mentally change you. So like, I've noticed during the day, like after smoking weed loads, I'd be sort of a bit more sort of agitated, get angry a little bit more, and you know, I'd be a bit more sort of like,
you're grumpy,
yeah, what's the point, you know, what's this? And then when I smoke, instant sort of like, so happy, you know, this is so good. And that's literally what I'd be like living for and stuff, you know. It's kind of just like I sort of like is that worth it, you know? Is it sort of just like, is all the effects during the day that I'm feeling negative worth the positive that I'm feeling for like literally like 10% of my day, you know? Like, it's kind of like stupid. I'm trying to sort of have like a little tolerance break now to switch it up, but it's a hard one. But people don't realise that like even mild stuff like that can be addictive. And like, I've got quite an addictive brain, like even just without drugs and alcohol and stuff, even with just like biscuits or something, I've got to have like you know, the whole pack or something, you know. And it's just sort of like, I don't actually need the whole pack. I could just have 2 or whatever, but like, I'm just sort of like, if they're there, I'll have it, you know.
Do you think that addiction is natural to the human like condition? Because I don't think other animals other than humans have addictions that are related to us. So like, for example, we could get addicted to food even, but animals eat until they're full. And maybe it's because of our greater intelligence that we have the downfall of the addiction.
Yeah. I mean, some animals do have weird addictions, you know, you never know. But like, I feel like for humans, it's really important to sort of identify what you're sort of addicted to and stuff, and really sort of ask yourself, because that's the kind of things that affects your life and affects like the way you see things and stuff. It's the things that you do on a constant, you know. Like if you walk outside the house every day and you have to have a cigarette, and you know, or you get off the bus and you have to have a cigarette, have to do this, or have to sniff a bag or whatever, whatever it is, like you sort of got to ask yourself, does the positives outweigh the negatives, you know? It's just kind of like, it's a tricky one, and it's really hard to do because your brain naturally makes excuses, you know, it naturally does. Like even if you smoked like 40 cigarettes, you're naturally going to be like, oh, I don't usually smoke that much, that's fine, you know, or like, I don't, like, your brain just naturally does it. It's not actually you talking, it's someone else sort of going like, trying to rationalize the things that make you feel good for a split second. And it's just like, it happens with milder things as well. It doesn't just have to be drugs. Like, you're sort of like, oh, imagine how good that will taste, might as well eat all of it, even though mum said like don't eat all of it, you're still going to eat all of it. Like, it's a hard one.
Do you think, we were talking earlier about the different polarities of the addiction, so there's good addictions and bad addictions. So I mean, I think bad addictions send you in a downward spiral, and they're obviously detrimental to your life. And good addictions spiral upwards and make you improve your life, obviously. So what do you think that just no addictions, just flat no addictions, what do you think that would be like?
Not being addicted to anything. If you have like no addictions to anything, which I kind of find hard to believe, but if you had none of it, you probably live quite a boring life. Like, and you probably sort of, unless like, because there's so much you can be addicted to. You can be addicted to work, like literally you could be addicted to so much. Like you get up every day at a certain, you'll clock it, you'll really think about your day, and you sort of think, oh, I get up every day and I make myself a coffee, and I do that every day. That's an addiction. Like that's an addiction without you noticing. And like, so to have no addictions and just to wake up, like, and maybe, well, yeah, you'd have to wake up each day and your day be completely different, and you do nothing in the same order as the same days, you know. So it's kind of like,
so you think addiction is necessary for the battle that is interesting?
Yeah.
Because without the fight to get off the addiction or whatever,
yeah,
it's just a bit, yeah, it's a bit naff, it's boring.
I mean, you can really sort of drill stuff into your brain. Like you could become addicted. So like if I change my routine and say like, oh, I'll wake up, do some meditation, go for an exercise, do this, do that, and then by the time I know it, I've gone to sleep. If I get used to that pattern of like waking up and doing the same things every day, then that will be what I'm addicted to, is like waking up and being addicted to the routine and ritual. And you can literally, if you force yourself to it, like become addicted to everything. Like it's when you sort of look at other people's lifestyles, like someone who's living like a Muslim lifestyle and wakes up and prays 5 times a day and lives this like amazing, like this like mad strict lifestyle, and you sort of think, how do they do that? Like, you know, and it's because they've been drilled it like it's drilled in, like it's just been like it's how these people, like straight business CEOs and people, like
they do that all
like
day,
they
like
do that all
day,
day every day, and that doesn't affect their happiness, it doesn't make them feel sort of like depressed or like sad. It's because they're doing it every day, and it's sort of like, you know, it's just sort of drilled in, it's like a repetitive sort of thing. So addictions are kind of really important, but it's the right ones that you got to choose, you know.